So let me tell you about the materials, guys. So if you plan on painting with me, you can get some stuff out. We will be doing freehand sketches today. So the paper doesn't really matter. You can use your sketchbook if you want. I'm going to use Bristol. It's just kind of thick, smooth paper. Basically, anything you have will be good. I am going to use just one color of watercolor. I still have some of that purple that I moved out of my palette. This is Mineral Violet by Holbein. I still have some, so I think that's what I'm going to use. Just a brush or two. I have a couple of my Asian art brushes prepared here. I like them because I'll show you if I wet them, they come to a really nice point. Even though they're kind of old and worn, I stain them with inks, but it's all right, it doesn't matter. So you want something flexible and pointy. Just if you have a good round brush or something like that, it will work. We will not be doing a preliminary pencil sketch, but we will need a pencil. I'll show you why. We're going to draw the horizon line. And I'm going to use a marker. This is just a permanent marker with the chisel tip. I like that one. You can do thick lines or thin lines with it. Basically any Sharpie. I have a Sharpie here too. We can use a Sharpie or something like that. And if we have time, we're going to do a little bit of work with opaque white. So ink or gouache, whatever you have available. I recently bought gel pens. Let me show you. These gel pens, I might test them. I tried using them with watercolor, and maybe because my paper was still damp, they would not draw anything. So I'll give them another try today. But I think on dry surface, this will be a good option. Our subject today for this live event is freehand sketching. Our subject will be people, the figure, obviously. I think it's a very good exercise for, like I said, brush control, hand-eye coordination, for water control, because we'll be painting with watercolor. But it's also a useful skill to have, right? Because adding people to our urbanscapes or landscapes gives them a focal point of interest. It also gives them scale. So I think ability to sketch figure is very important for an artist, and we will practice that today. So that will be our goal today. It's also kind of meditative, calming thing to do. So if you plan on painting along, like I said, I am not using watercolor paper. This is just Bristol, just a thick piece of paper. You can use any paper, you can use your sketchbook, and we will use only one color. I have some purple left over here. Totally doesn't matter which one you want, whatever you have. If you have some leftover paint on your palette, just mix it all together and use it up. It will be all good. That's not the point, and we're not working on color or anything. We will be working on creating shapes and on controlling our brush. So let's work on that. Is everyone ready? I still see a bunch of people joining. Good morning, everyone. We have a winter day here in Houston, relatively winter. It's about just a little bit above freezing here. At least it was. It's warming up really quickly. But next week we're going to have summer again. It's going to be in upper 80s. Okay, is everyone ready? I don't see any chat messages, guys. Just say hello in the chat so I know you're here. And if you have any questions, obviously just post them in the chat. I keep an eye on it. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat. If I disappear from the screen sometimes, I have a second screen right here, guys, so I'm sorry I'm disappearing. I see some waves. Good morning. Yeah, if I disappear off the screen, it means I'm looking at my computer. I need a better setup. I'll do it next time so I don't have to disappear back and forth. So here's our reference, and without further ado, let's get started on sketching our people. So interesting thing that I discovered about sketching people, I forgot what artist it was. I was watching a class and he gave a very important tip, how to create perspective when you sketch people. And the interesting thing is that all the heads of people, when we're looking at a crowd, let's say, and you can see it really well in this photo, there is some camera lens distortion, but basically all the heads of the people are on one line. And let me bring it a little bit closer to the camera. So because we're looking at people, kind of our eyes are on the same level as people's eyes, you know, if we're standing. So their heads will be on our eye level. And obviously people are taller or shorter, so approximately the same level. But depending how close or far away from us they are, the legs will be at different levels. And that's what creates perspective when you sketch a crowd, when you sketch several people. And that was an eye-opener for me, guys. I don't know, maybe you knew this already, but I haven't thought about it. So if you start moving the heads, you're just making people taller or shorter. But if you move their feet where their feet are, you paint them closer or further away from you. Does that make sense? You will see it when I start sketching. I'm going to start. So I will sketch individual figures first. We're not going to sketch the crowd. We will see how much time I have. Maybe we'll get to the crowd. Maybe we'll just do it. You can do it yourselves. But I'm going to start with individual figures. Let's start with this couple. And to make my task a little bit easier, I am going to sketch that level where the heads are going to be. Use a ruler. And just put a little pencil line there. And after that, I am ready to start. Take a deep breath. It's kind of, you know, calm. Feel calm yourself. And, you know, it's a little overwhelming to see a white sheet of paper and, you know, just paint something without preliminary sketch, but it's a sheet of paper. We can always throw it away and start over, so let's not worry about it and just enjoy the experience. If it doesn't work out, we'll take another one and start over. And another important thing before we start that I need to mention, when you know, some people feel a little intimidated painting people. I know it's a complicated subject, like the human form is pretty complex, but we need to forget about that, you know, that's human figure. We need to look for shapes, right? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to look at the shapes and try to recreate them on paper as simply and, you know, in a very abstract manner. And I'm going to start with the head, and then I'm going to kind of use that head that I will sketch as reference and add everything else to that head. And you will see what I mean in a second. So let's get started. He's wearing a hat. So I kind of go from side to side. I'm not trying to sketch like his head and then, you know, I'm not thinking these are the shoulders, this is the arm. I'm working with a shape. So there is a big shape here. And let me stop for a second, guys. So, like I said, I started with his head. And that was my reference shape, right? I don't have anything on paper, so I need to start somewhere. So I started with the head and I made it this size. So my next step needs to be adding this shape to this shape and making it the right size. So now that I have something on paper, let's evaluate. So if this is this size that I sketched, I can tell that maybe this needs to go out further, and then this shape needs to be wider, and this side needs to be wider too. So you see, I'm kind of, it's not that I know what size to make things. I constantly evaluate what I'm doing in relationship with what I already have on paper. And there will be a shape here. Anybody here who took my sketching people class? This, we talk about it a lot there, right? Evaluating the angles and the distances and creating shapes in relationship to other shapes. Okay, so this is my first figure. And the interesting thing about figure also that I noticed, because usually the light comes from above somewhere, the sun is above our head, the top will be lighter, and then it will, you can even see it in the photo. See how he's getting darker towards the bottom? So it always helps to make the figure look more realistic and more kind of relatable if we do that with paint on paper. Just a little bit of second layer here. Okay, and let's paint the other. I'm not going to say figure, the other shape. And so I already have something on paper here, so I need to paint this shape in relationship to this one, right? It's, my life is already getting a little bit easier because I have something to go by, something to relate to. And feet are probably the hardest to get right, especially at this angle when people are walking away from us. So the less you do, the better. Just don't go into details with the feet and you'll be fine. I know it kind of sounds counterproductive. Just people can guess, everybody has feet, so people know they're there. And now I have this shape, so I need to paint the head in relationship to this shape and make it hopefully the right size. And I see that, this shape needs to be wider. Now that I'm evaluating kind of the result, I can add a little bit here. Okay, so this is my first figure. What do you guys think? Wasn't too hard, was it? What was I going to tell you? I forgot. Anyway, so the important thing, don't think about painting. Oh, that's right. I'm not painting like the head and here's the shoulder and here's the center line and I divide it into eighths, right? Like we were taught in the art school. I'm just looking at the shape. I'm evaluating how tall it is, how wide it is. If the head is this size, are the shoulders wide enough? So just working abstractly and looking for distances and angles, right? And let's paint the dog, it's a shape too, kind of fun little shape here. Okay, and here's the dog. All right. What else can we do? Let's do another shape. Here's this girl with a backpack. Let's paint her. And we will, now I will show you guys that theory about putting all the heads on the same level. So I'm going to put her here. And I'm going to start approximately at the same level. She has kind of hair blown in the wind in every which direction. And let's do her shoulders. Do her head a little bit bigger. Here's her backpack. Again, looking for shapes, looking for distances. And not putting in too much detail, especially on the bottom. Her feet are unfortunately kind of cut off, so we need to just hint at something. It's usually not a good idea to try to invent information. It's probably not going to work. So here she is. So what happened here? Her head is approximately on the same line. I made her very tall. I raised the top of the head a little bit, but her legs are coming lower, right, than this guy's legs. And what does it look like? It looks like she's closer to us, right? So this is what I was talking about, the perspective. So the heads will all be approximately on the same level. So we can tell this guy is tall, his wife is shorter than him, and the girl is tall and she's closer to us. And these people are walking kind of in front of her, right? So they're further away from us. So that's how we create perspective when we sketch people. So if you want, you have a 1-point perspective of a street or something like that, and you want to liven it up and add some figures. So keep this in mind. That's how you would do it. If you make the legs kind of lower, people will appear closer to us. And if you want to paint them further away, you will just make the legs at a higher level. With the street, it will be a little bit more tricky because you will have to make those people proportionate to the architecture, but nobody said that perspective is easy, and it will all come with experience. Okay, Jen says I can see anything. Jen, maybe try leaving the live room and coming back in again. Oh, and says try refreshing your browser if you're experiencing issues. Is everybody else okay? Everybody can see me? Let me do full screen also. Okay. I think everybody else is fine. Yeah. If you're experiencing issues, try refreshing the browser, guys. Let me mute everybody too. Okay, yeah, it seems everyone's good. I know it's, it depends on your internet. Also, Kajabi might have something, but I think for the most part we're okay. All right, guys, so what do you think so far? I think we can do, yeah, we're doing pretty good on time. Let's do another one. There's this girl with the umbrella. I'm trying to keep that reference where you all can see it. So the photo is kind of a little dark, but you have the reference. So I'm going to paint her. I think I'm going to make her kind of in between these two people, right? So I will need to make her about this tall. Let's see how this works out. So the umbrella will be above her head, but I'll make her a little bit shorter than these people. So the umbrella, and her hair is kind of sticking from underneath it. And I'm going to paint, just throw on a shape. Like I said, we can always make corrections, right? We can add a little bit. So just rub something in. She has this bag in her hair, in her arm. And here's her elbow. And here's her, this shape, the coat. So you see, I am not trying to be precise from the very beginning, because that will be very hard to do. And I just kind of feel my way around the figure, and then if necessary I make corrections. Yeah, this is giant foot. Let's make it a little slimmer, even though she does have big shoes on. Okay, and now let's find some precision. Let's give her darker hair so we can see the umbrella casts a shadow on her, right? There will be slightly lighter shape here, and there will be the top of the umbrella. Okay. Okay, so here's another shape that we created. So we can tell that she's kind of in between these people and this girl, right? Because that's where her legs end. Okay. Oh, Jen, I also saw that if you have an iPhone and iPad, you need to use Safari. You will have to use Safari. Don't use Chrome or anything to open the Lightroom. It will only work on Safari on Apple devices. All right. I have a little bit of room here, and I think an interesting thing to try, guys, will be to paint these kids. So now we have people that are actually shorter, right? And you know, to make them realistic, their heads are actually not go. If we put their heads on this level, right, they're going to be either very far away from us, or they will look like adults, right? It's not going to work. So if I want to paint those kids next to this woman and make them look like they're her kids, the legs need to be on the same level as hers, but the heads will be lower, right? Because they're short. So let's try it and see if this works out. So I don't know how tall I want to make them, but something like this. They will be independent kids. They will just walk. I'll make them like walk maybe hand in hand with each other. And kids' proportions will be different, of course, from adults, but we don't care, right? We're painting shapes. We're not worried about calculating the proportions, or we're not thinking about anatomy or anything like that. We're just painting shapes. Here's the little girl. her skirt dark, maybe make her hair dark. Okay, so here are the kids, and let's see where it looks like they're walking. They're walking next to this woman, right? And you can tell that because they're shorter, they're her, they're kids. They're not as tall as the adults. Okay, so that's how we will paint the kids. All right, let's set this aside and let's work on this crowd that I have on the top. We will come back to this sketch a little bit later. How y'all doing, guys? You're all very quiet. Nobody leaves me any chat messages. hopefully you're painting. Okay, so here's our crowd. If we look at the heads, like I mentioned, they look a little bit, that line looks warped. I think it's actually camera lens warping, because the photographer used obviously a wide angle lens to capture all these people. We can kind of do the same thing if we wanted. I will draw the line of those heads right here, and let's just give it a gentle warp. It doesn't have to be super straight. That will kind of make it more kind of natural looking. And to paint the crowd, I was kind of thinking about it. There are some people that stand out, like they're closer to us. So we can try to capture them. They're also walking kind of at an angle, because diagonally, right? So there is a lot of stuff going on, but let's see if we can capture it for our exercise. Let me look at the chat. Okay, yeah, Jen is having trouble, but yeah, it will depend on the quality of the computer, I'm sure. All right, I'll just start with this figure on the left and kind of go. Actually, let's start with this figure in the center, and so we can start from the center and go left and right. Again, try not to concentrate on details. She's carrying something in her hand. So those capturing those proportions and putting the feet in the right spot will be especially important for a crowd, right? So then we will create realistic crowd. We need to watch where the feet are and all, where the heads are. Okay, this is one. Then I'm going to do this guy. He's closer to us. So maybe slightly larger head. And it's hard to capture, to do the faces. So I just don't do them either, because we just don't have, the scale is not large enough to show faces. So this guy will be closer. So his feet will be at a lower level. And of course, it's a candid photo and everybody was in motion, and sometimes people's poses look a little kind of funny, awkward, maybe hands somewhere, but it's okay. We can also, add stuff or take stuff away and do whatever we need to do for our purposes. I'm going to do this lady. Yeah, see, she's pointing with her hand, which is fine. Okay, and I'm not going to do the whole crowd, guys, because I want to show you something else. But now that we sketched the key figures, right, that we see in the reference, we can fill it in between, right? So that's what I wanted to show you, how to do that crowd. So you can kind of treat the rest of the people as one shape as well, because when you're sketching, you're not going to do like every single figure separately. We need to simplify somehow, but because we know how to create the proportion and how to create the perspective, it's a lot easier for us now to show something, that there are some people down there. So see how I'm kind of connecting it all together, and there will be some people here. So just another minute, and instead of just 3 figures, I have a whole crowd going on here. Okay, yeah, some people are joining a little bit later. That's great. Great to see everybody. Let's add some people behind this lady. There's a figure here. So I think you see my point, right? By moving the legs, I'm making people further and further away from us, and that way we can create the perspective. And watercolor will be kind of tricky to use alone for this, for these exercises. If you're having a little bit of trouble, like mine is with this crowd especially, is becoming pretty messy, we will go to markers. That's what I wanted to show you guys as well. So the couple guys walking side by side, and let's just do this little group at the distance, so the last ones, and we will move on to markers. And almost everybody's wearing pants, so a lot of opportunities to paint any people in skirts. But if you go to Unsplash and just put in people or like crowd in the search box, you will find a bunch of photos, free photos that you can use for practice. And this last guy. Okay. Let's see. This one is still kind of damp. So if you wanted to turn this into a sketch, let's say, a couple things we can do. Let me show you real quick. I'll use this brush. First of all, shadows will really help us to create even more interest and volume in the painting, right? Shadows are always good. So we can also do something like this in reverse. And of course, it's hard to tell who is who and which shadow goes where, but we can do something very kind of quick and abstract here. And because this is one point perspective, right? This is the perspective point, where all the lines converge. We need to go in this direction on this side. Okay, and we can very quickly do something for the hint at the surrounding area. I'm not even, worried about showing buildings or anything, but just something really quick. And you see, I'm already getting more or less finished sketch. I will need to use my marker to work on it some more, but very quickly and very easily I created, a beginning of actually painting, right? Let me set this aside. Let me work on the first one a little more. Running out of room here. So here we can do the same thing, maybe some shadows. When they're coming towards us, it always looks really nice. And you can even pull some paint out of the figures. And we can do give them a horizon. And we can do something, I don't know, maybe there are trees or something in the distance. Just creating some atmosphere, some visual interest in the sketch. And you will understand why I'm trying to do this in just a second. Paper towel is interesting to use because you can do a little more texture with it, right? I often kind of blot things with a paper towel. Okay, let's see. All right, markers. So I think like line and wash is a very suitable technique for this. Makes our life a lot easier, right? Watercolor, adding details with watercolor can be tricky. Not so much tricky, but it takes a bit of time, right? So if you're out somewhere sketching or you're just practicing, I would do the initial shapes with the brush, because brush gives you a lot more freedom, right? And it requires a little bit more control on our part because we're controlling the bristles. We also have to control paint and water. But after you did this, it's a good idea to take a marker and just go over your sketch one more time and give it a little more precision. So that will train your eye to go from overall shape to more detailed view, right? So my recommendation would be to grab a marker and go over your sketch one more time. Yeah, Unsplash is UNSPASH. Yeah, thank you who posted this. Yeah, Arlene, thank you for posting it. Yeah, and thanks for joining me. It's good to see you too. Unsplash.com, you can find a bunch of photos, and another site is Pixabay. It's Pixabay. A bunch of free photos there as well, and yeah, you will easily find a reference on one of those. All right, let's work a little bit on the precision of our photos. So the thing with line, guys, to keep in mind, we want to show the darkest elements on the figure, right? The sun is coming from above, and you can clearly see, especially on this figure, because it's all black, like on top of the head there is the light, and on top of the shoulders and on the arm here. So we don't want to put the black line there, right? We most likely even will need to use our opaque white or another white marker or something like that to add those highlights to give our figure even more volume. So the dark lines need to go in the darkest areas, so most likely kind of underneath the form or in the places where the two forms touch and form a dark accent. So something to keep in mind. I know it's very tempting to just go around the figure and add the black line everywhere, but it's not going to work because that's not what the figure looks like. And I always tell you, right, interrupting the line always looks better. We're going to make her talk on the cell phone, so she's gesturing at something, but it doesn't look natural. And see, I wanted to draw a line here, but this is the surface that gets a little bit of light, so I don't want to put that dark line there. And this can be all dark. This is fine because this doesn't catch any light anymore. Okay. So you see, just a couple of lines, and I'm getting the figure a lot more precision, and it looks a lot better. Let's do this one. Looking for dark shapes. This is dark. And leaving some things to imagination, to viewers' discretion. These people in the distance, first of all, the lines, if we want to give them a little precision, the lines need to be a lot lighter, but maybe we can even leave them as just watercolor. Because they're further away from us, we don't see the details so much, right? So very, very light details here. And this figure is closer, so we can work on it a little bit more. And this is the time when we can actually make some corrections if we messed up the scale or something like that. We can fix it a little bit. Somebody walking behind her there. This figure is all in light, so I'm not even going to touch it. And let's give this a little precision. And this guy's. Okay, and these people, I guess they can be, I can touch them up a little bit just to finish up our sketch. And if your figures start to blend with the background a little bit, guys, you know what to do, right? Just grab some opaque white. I'll show you just a couple of brush strokes. How are we doing? We have 15 minutes left. I don't want to keep you here all morning. So if I start adding highlights, you will see a huge difference. Graham Berry has all those tutorials on sketching people, and you can tell that he really uses those highlights to create that visual interest and that volume. He fills the figure with different colors, but it really starts to come to life when you add the highlights. Okay, let me show you the section that I did. See, when I started adding the highlights, they first of all separated from the background and they became more three-dimensional, right? So this will be a couple things we can do to make the sketch more finished. You know, I practiced before this session and I was like, okay, the shapes look okay, but it's all very kind of flat and starting to blend together. So I added the darkest accents with the marker and then I added the highlights, and that makes the scene really pop. All right. I can work on these guys for a second. Let's just do the highlights on these guys. So if I add a little bit more information, right, on these guys, the shoulders, on the hand, even without the marker, we can achieve more volume. By playing with light and shadow. Okay, so something like this, right, guys? Makes the sketch a lot more interesting. All right, so hopefully you will agree with me. This is a fun exercise, very useful for hand-eye coordination. Sketching people will help you to get over that reservation that maybe you have about painting people. You know, a lot of artists think I need to study anatomy, I need to, you know, practice from a live model, which is all great if you can do that, if you have time for that. But to start sketching people and adding them to your paintings, or just doing maybe quick fun sketches like I showed you today, you really don't need much. You just need to look for shapes, for light and shadow, and evaluate the distances, and start somewhere and then build the shape around that reference point. I usually use the head, or you can go from the bottom. I think from the head it will be easier, because that's positioning the head on the same line. That's how we create perspective, right? So great exercise, but as you understand, I'm sure, you don't have to even use people to benefit from these freehand sketches. And I know some of you participated in my previous live sessions. We did birds, right? Another great subject. Very easy to find reference online for birds. You can do that if you want to get started. Also good addition to any landscape. Kind of liven it up, and you can put them in the sky. But I know it can be a little scary just starting to paint a bird on your finished painting. So a little bit of warm-up, a little bit of practice is always good. And we also did this fun one that I wanted to show you guys. We did the cats, right? Everybody loves cats. You can also look for shapes, and I added a little bit of marker to give them definition, added a little bit of white. If you have a real cat, that will be fun, catching them in different poses. So it's all great exercise. No pencil drawing, no preliminary drawing, just do it freehand. And that will give you the biggest benefit in practicing. Alrighty. That's all I have for today, guys. I can work on these guys a little more, but I think you all understand. Yeah, this session is recorded, and I'm recording it on my computer as well, so I'm probably going to put a recording on YouTube. So I don't think Kajabi adds subtitles, but YouTube does add automatic subtitles, and they're pretty good. So in case somebody wants to watch with subtitles, I like to put, also have a YouTube version, and I will send you all a link so members of the community can watch it. One more time, there will be in-person class in Houston that I will be teaching on March 18th. We'll be talking about about still life. I'm still on landscapes. We will talk about 2 ways to paint still life. So if you live in Houston or you would like to come visit us here in Houston, you're welcome to sign up for this class. I don't have the registration set up yet. That's on my to-do list for this weekend, so you will all get an email, a notification, and hopefully you can join me, because it will be a very interesting subject, light and shadow in watercolor, and how to use them to create realism in your painting. So all these kind of abstract sketches are a lot of fun and very good for our practice, but if you want to paint realistically, you need to know how to I will be teaching 2 ways to create light and shadows in watercolor, and you can choose which one is best for you, for your style, but you will have all this knowledge in your arsenal when you start painting. All right, guys, please practice this until our next meeting in 2 weeks. I'm not sure what the subject is going to be, and you can let me know in the community chat as well what you're interested in. I'm thinking maybe doing another session on colors. Maybe we will paint with secondary palette or something like that, or maybe there is something else you want to suggest. I'm definitely open to suggestion. Spring is coming, maybe you want to do flowers or something like that. So let's all think about it, what we want to do. In 2 weeks on Saturday, as usual at 10 o'clock, we will meet here in the live room and keep painting. Let me see, no questions. Get a lot of thank yous. The in-person class is going to be in Cyprus. So it's on, let's see, it's called Spring Creek Barbecue Restaurant. They have a meeting room that will be just for us. There will be projector. I will be doing live demo, and we can also get lunch there. It's great barbecue restaurant. So it's on Highway 6 in Houston. It's on kind of northwest side. So March 18th is Saturday. That's when we booked it. The restaurant opens at 11, so that's when we will start setting up. And the class will be 4 hours with 1 hour lunch break. So there will be 2 live demos, and then everybody will be painting. Of course, I will be there kind of commenting and helping everybody. So if I will send everybody an email with the registration link, and you can decide if you want to join me. I think it will be a fun event, just a fun way to spend your Saturday. Next meetup is in 2 weeks, so we will skip next Saturday, and then we will meet again. And like I said, I'm open to suggestions as to the subject. Yeah, and the recording of this session will be in the community. When you go to meetups on top, you see all those little rectangles with the recordings, and you will see this one. And like I said, I'll post it on YouTube as well. Thank you all for joining me, guys. Do some practice, do some people sketching, and post in the community so I can see it, or tag me on social media so I can see your work. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a good Saturday.